Hey guys, Carl from Purple Moose Plays. This video is going to be the first in a new series that acts as sort of a companion piece to my other new series, Purple Moose's Parcels. As a reviewer who also happens to live in New York, space is at a premium, so I'm always constantly cycling games out of my collection and into my collection, sort of curating a collection that works best for me. And one of the things that I was most excited about when I got my sponsorship from Noble Knight Games is their awesome trade-in system. Basically, you go to their website, download an Excel template, fill it out with a list of your games, their publishers, any description of sort of extra stuff that's in the box or any sort of missing components or problems, damage to the box or components, and then you sort of select new or used or the condition of the game, send that Excel file over to Noble Knight Games, and they will send you back a quote for either or both cash or in-store credit. And if you approve that, then they will actually send you FedEx mailing labels. You box everything up, slap their own labels on, means you're not paying anything for shipping, send it off to Noble Knight, and then you get the cash or credit as you selected. So this video is going to be called Purple Moose Purges, and basically what this is going to be is me going through my collection every so often, culling out the games that just aren't getting played for whatever reason, showing them off to you as they're leaving the collection, sort of giving you some story about the game, explaining the game, why I'm getting rid of it, etc. Some of this will be really detailed, some of it will just be, I don't really like this game, sorry, goodbye. But basically, as I'm explaining, I'm going to be boxing these games up, sending them off to Noble Knight in order to get some more store credit with them to basically then use to get new games, different games to cover on this channel. So it's helping out the channel and all of you in the process as well. Now, before I head down to the table to show you what's leaving the collection this time, I did just have a giveaway celebrating my 2,000 subscriber milestone last week, so I do want to announce the winners of that giveaway first. So I'm going to go head over to a sort of roulette wheel to show you the winners of those two giveaways, and then I will come back and show you the games that are leaving the collection this time in the first sort of episode of Purple Moose Purges.
All right, so here we go. I got a total of 32 entries in the Google form, but unfortunately one of them did not have a comment on YouTube, so I cannot include that one here. We're going to start with the World Wonders giveaway. There were only 19 people who submitted for that giveaway. And with that, here we go. And look at that, Gary Huber wins. I laugh because Gary Huber was the only person who went in on World Wonders only and not the Noble Knight giveaway. So look at that. You choose World Wonders as your only option, and you are the winner. Congratulations, Gary. I will be reaching out to you in the comments of the original video as well as by email so that I can get you the copy sent to you. Again, congratulations. All right, then moving into the next giveaway, the $50 gift certificate from Noble Knight Games. Again, the sponsor for my channel. I do ask if you wouldn't mind when you use this gift card, please make sure to use my affiliate link down in the description of the video below. With that said, again, we had 32 entries to the Google form, one of which didn't comment on the YouTube video, so unfortunately was removed, and the other being Gary Huber, who did enter only into the World Wonders giveaway. And what do you know? He was the winner of that as well. So here we go, 30 names on the wheel, selecting for a $50 gift certificate from Noble Knight Games. And here we go. And it looks like our winner is Icy Mallard 3. Congratulations. I will be reaching out again in the comments of the original video as well as directly through email because you will end up receiving your gift certificate as an email from Noble Knight Games as well. But I'll give you more information about that in the email that I send you. Once again, congratulations to Icy Mallard 3 on the $50 gift certificate win from Noble Knight Games. And now let's head down to the table for my very first Purple Moose Purges.
So I'm going to start off with a group of games that's going to be an easy one for me to talk about. And those games are these right here. Night Parade of 100 Yokai, Power Plants, and Wonder Tales. And the reason I say that these are going to be easy for me to talk about is because these are all games that I'm actually keeping. This is a little bit of a cheat here because all three of these games are games that I really, really, really enjoy. All three of these games are games that I've covered on the channel, so you can find the videos and find out more about them if you'd like to. This game remains one of my absolute favorite button-shy games. This is at heart a two-player sort of head-to-head battle, spatial puzzle kind of game. But there's a very good solo mode in this game, and holding this in my hands now and talking about it makes me want to get it back out onto the table and play it. But the reason that I'm getting rid of this is because recently in a Button Shy reprint campaign, they reprinted this game. They changed one or two of the cards just slightly. They put out a printed copy of the solo mode rules, and they also added a new expansion. So right now, I have all of the new printing stuff. So this old original version of the game, with actually a copy of the solo mode cards as well included, will be going off, but it's not leaving my collection. I'm just upgrading to the newer version with all of the expansion stuff. Similarly for these two as well, Power Plants I got as a review copy from Kids Table Board Games and loved it. And I did a review for it and I instantly said, gee, I have the retail copy of the game, but boy, would I much rather have the deluxe version with all of the fun wooden bits and all of these sort of extra expansion-y promo kind of stuff in it. So I did what I could and I finally found a copy of the Kickstarter deluxe version in a trade. And that means that the standard retail-based version of the game is leaving my collection, but that does not mean I don't love this game. It's still in my collection, just in a fancier, cooler, better version of the game. For those of you who don't know, this is a sort of spatial tile laying or tile manipulation area control game that works really well solo, has lots of variability with the different kinds of plants and how they sort of interact with that spatial tableau of tiles. Whole lot of fun. I still haven't gotten a chance to play it multiplayer, but I really do hope to do so soon. That is Power Plants. So goodbye retail version and welcome fancy deluxe version into my collection. Finally, same thing about Night Parade of 100 Yokai. I picked this up a long while ago, mostly based off of the art, not the art of this cover. I said it in my review before, this cover doesn't make me all that happy, but the game itself is really cool. It's got these really awesome wooden animal meeples. I guess you could call them meeples. They're much bigger and chunkier than your standard meeples. Super cute, really great artwork, really cool sort of semi-programming. Deck building's not really the word because you're kind of tableau building as you're playing this cool area control game. Now this one is one that's almost definitely going to play better multiplayer, but I did really enjoy the solo game and I really wanted to get some of the expansions to get different factions with different powers. But more importantly, recently they kickstarted another expansion that sort of adds a whole bunch of mechanisms to the game as well. And I've really been wanting to track it all down. Well, this one, again, I got really lucky and managed to find an all-in, everything in the box copy of the game, including the playmat. So this is one that absolutely stays in my collection, and I'm extremely happy to finally have it all. And what that means is I've got one extra copy of the base box here in my collection, so off it goes into the box. This next set of games is one that I picked up in a solo sort of pass it forward giveaway chain on BGG. It was just a sort of big grouping of solo games that I didn't really know too much about. I knew that this one was something that I'd been hearing lots of sort of interesting stories about, but didn't really know anything about how it played. Fire in the Library was a name that I'd heard a lot about as well that I didn't really know. Echoes from Ravensburger, I've been really enjoying their Exit series, these sort of escape room in a box games, so I was very interested to see what that would do. This Rebus is part of a grouping of 3 games that was in a Kickstarter, and I was kind of curious about those, and this Pew Pew game I'd actually never even heard of, and was kind of intrigued by what this was, sort of a shoot 'em up video game kind of thing. So I went, put my name into the hat, and sure enough, I got chosen. And unfortunately, they are sort of all leaving the collection. The only ones that I've played, to be honest with you, are these 2. And despite being a huge fan of the Exit game, this Echoes game just didn't work for me. If you don't know what Echoes is, it's sort of a puzzly kind of game a la an escape room in a box game, except that it's all sound-based. So you're basically got these cards that show pictures, and then you're listening to this soundtrack of things happening, and you kind of have to put the things in order to try and figure out what's going on. And I just couldn't get into it. I didn't even manage to finish any of it, really. I played it for a little bit and thought, this is work and I'm not enjoying it, so I kind of just put it away. Rebus I played a few times, and I don't mind it. It was a fun little solo game. It works well solo, but ultimately it doesn't really do anything for me, and it's sort of just taking up space on my shelf, so off it goes. Holding On I tried to play, but it's not actually soloable. It seems to be the kind of thing that you can kind of force to play solo, but it's not really. And every time I've opened it up, I've kind of read it, looked at the rules a little bit and thought, nah, and back on the shelf it went. And for these two, honestly, I don't know what the problem is, and I probably should not be getting rid of these yet, because I should probably be trying them before I get rid of them, because they could both be very excellent games. But I've got a lot of games with very little space, and these two have been sitting on a shelf for a very, very, very long time, and I still haven't gotten to them at all yet. So unfortunately, I think it's time for them to go. So with that, all of these go into my box. This next one is probably the one in this grouping that I'm kind of wishy-washy about the most, and that's because I really enjoyed this one quite a bit. I'm a huge fan of Orleans, and I actually picked this up before I finally got Orleans into my collection. And since then I've gotten Orleans, I've gotten all of Orleans, and I'm very, very excited to have it. I've so far only played the base game with a fan-made solo mode and loved even that fan-made solo mode, so I am very, very sort of high on the Orleans train. This game was really cool. It's a really interesting game in that it's sort of a bag builder game with the same sort of tokens from Orleans, except that when you're drawing them and using them, it's activating different things on a roll and write pad. And I had a whole lot of fun with this one. But for whatever reason, it never got played again. I played it a bunch and then I put it away, and then it never came back off the shelf. And again, it's just taking up space, and I feel bad about this because I do really enjoy it. And given the amount of space, sort of an endless amount of space, this one would very likely stay in my collection because I do really enjoy it. But roll and writes for me are the kind of thing where I play them and love them and play a ton of it over and over and over and over and over again, and then I shelf it, and then it kind of just stays there. And for that reason, this being a roll and write, already having the core Orleans game, all of it, loving it, keeping it, this one unfortunately is not keeping its space on my shelf, and off it goes into the box. This next one pains me a little bit because I wanted to love it so much. Kingdom Rush, I just did a video for this not too long ago. And if you watch my video, this probably comes as no surprise to you. The core mechanism in this game continues to intrigue me. I love the polyomino tile laying sort of cover up stuff to kill enemies puzzle. I love this sort of tower defense, upgrading towers, getting new abilities, positioning them on the map as things move past, deciding when to kill things, when to hurt things, when to let things hurt you, and so on. But ultimately, it just was too punishing. It never felt like I could do all the things I wanted to do before the game destroyed me. It's a whole lot of setup, a whole lot of put away, lots of fiddly bits, and it just ended up being the kind of game that, while I really want to enjoy it based on the artwork, based on the components, based on the design, based on the ideas, it's just not fun enough for me, and it does just sit on the shelf, and I can't keep games that don't get played. So unfortunately, Kingdom Rush is leaving the collection today. The next one is an interesting one. This one's got a bit of a story on my channel, and that's Panorama. This, back early in my channel history when I did start just doing this stuff, I was sent this game for review, I guess, without any contact, without anything. It just kind of showed up. And I was, at first glance, really excited about it because it's a beautiful game, great production quality. This box has a great sort of magnetic flap that folds open. Again, gorgeous artwork. Let me show you quickly while I'm in here, just because I want you to see the design here, the visuals of this game. It's basically a card drafting sort of tableau building game where you're sort of building these panoramic views of stuff, and you're scoring points based on the different features that are on the views, different trees, how things connect to each other, and so on. But it just ends up, you can see as it lays out, it ends up building these huge panoramic scenes that just look beautiful. And as this grows across the table, it looks wonderful. The scoring is interesting. And I did take this home for one vacation at some point and play with my family, and I had quite a bit of fun with it, actually. It's a very light drafting game, but when I did sit down to think about reviewing this game way back when I got this game, the solo mode in this is pretty much not a thing. And I did bounce off it really hard. Again, it did kind of redeem itself a little bit when I brought it home and played it with my family. But unfortunately, because I don't play a whole lot of these kinds of light, casual games with groups, because I don't really have a group, and especially not a casual group, except for occasionally with my family. And the solo mode in this just doesn't really work. Unfortunately, that means the game does go away, despite being as beautiful as it is. Next up, completely unrelated to each other, but I'll put them both on the screen because they're small. I've got Pilfering Pandas and Tiny Epic Dinosaurs. Pilfering Pandas is a card game. It was a Kickstarter game. It's sort of a twist on Rummy, where you're basically playing a panda in a zoo trying to escape from the zoo, and you're trying to build sets a la Rummy card game to get out of the zoo. And I don't know if you can see here, I'm not going to dig into the box, but the artwork here is really, really, really cool. I love this sort of, almost sort of paper cutout looking style artwork. The game was a lot of fun. It is a light card game that unfortunately I just don't get into very often. Again, if I had unlimited space, this one would likely stay just because it is cute. It is a light, fun, set collecting kind of card game. It is something that I would occasionally pull out if I had it around. But unfortunately, I don't really have the space to keep it around. So it does, unfortunately, leave the collection. Now, this one here, Tiny Epic Dinosaurs, I hate to say it, but good riddance. I will be fine with you leaving. I did review this one. If you saw my review, this shouldn't come as a surprise. This is a game that I played a couple of times and was not thrilled with how fiddly all of the components and how horribly, not how horribly, but how much work it takes to set up and get into this game when you first get the game. So you'll see that I did actually end up reaching out to a insert or organizer company to get this 3D printed organizer inside, and I reviewed the organizer as well because I was hoping that if I had a nice organization, a nice way to get this game in and out of the box quicker, that I could enjoy this game more. I do enjoy the idea of it, this sort of building this Dino Ranch kind of game. I do enjoy the worker placement. I do enjoy some of the stuff that's going on in this game, but ultimately the solo game feels a little cheaty. And it's really, really punishingly difficult solo. And it's not something that I enjoy the core mechanics or mechanisms of enough to hold on to it to hopefully someday play multiplayer. So unfortunately, this game does go away. Next one's a bit random. This one I actually never played. I tried a couple of times. I'm sorry if you hate me for it. Lord of the Rings, the card game. This is the original printing, the original version of the game. I found this one at a thrift store, kind of. It's really, there's a store nearby that basically buys and sells used children's clothing and toys and, you know, cribs and playpens and all of that kind of stuff. And I was just in there with my kids looking for some clothes for them, and the kids were playing with toys, and I went back into the corner to look at the sort of board game area, never expecting to see anything, and this was there shining at me for a very, very, very reasonable price. What's more, I then got home and I looked inside, and all of the cards are sleeved, which was like, oh boy, this is great. I've got sleeved cards, great condition, really low price. I've heard some really good things about the game. I read the rules. I watched some playthroughs. It looked interesting. I sat down to play it 2, 3, 4 times, and every time I took it out, set it up, went ahead to just about get ready to play the game, and then thought, yeah, I'd rather be doing something else. I'm sorry, I'm just not a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I do love that kind of world of fantasy, but for whatever reason it is, Lord of the Rings for me is, overall the story is cool, the characters are cool, but I've never really been pulled into the universe of this, and I'm also not a huge fan of deck construction type games. So really this game didn't really do anything for me thematically or mechanically to pull me in. And unfortunately, there's a chance that if I was forced to sit down and play through this a bit, I would really get into it. But unfortunately, situation being what it is going to leave my collection. Spire's End Hildegard. This is one that I've tracked down for a very, very, very long time. I've always wanted to play the original Spire's End, never did. And then when this came out, I always wanted to play this and never did. And I tried and I tried and I tried, and I finally found it in a trade. Super excited, got it out. I love this artwork. I love the world. I love what's going on here. I played through the first sort of chapter, and I just wasn't all that thrilled with it. It's very random, dice-based, roll this, see what happens kind of a game. I know there's probably a little bit more in there than I'm giving it credit for. But ultimately, there wasn't enough going on in this to bring me back a second or third time after I died and thought, nah, do I really want to do this again, or would I rather play something else? And unfortunately, I'd rather play something else. So despite still being somewhat intrigued, and I think it's probably mostly because of the really, really awesome artwork in this game, unfortunately, Spire's End, only after finally tracking down a copy, does leave the collection somewhat quickly. Ragusa, the first of the 3 sort of location-based games from Brain Crack. This is one that I picked up again in one of those giveaway, pay-it-forward kinds of chains on BGG, mostly just because it looked interesting. And I had been hearing about this series of games from Brain Crack. Didn't really know anything about it. That sounds messy. I promise I checked. It's not. It's a very unique, very interesting game where you're sort of placing down on the intersection of locations on the map, and then you're triggering sort of the stuff that you get from all of them based on the number of things that are on the other sort of intersections of those locations. And you're sort of growing out slowly, building resources, using resources to manipulate markets and score points and so on. And it's a very interesting game. And the solo is not at all bad. I had an interesting time with this game again. This is another one that, given endless space, would likely stay in my collection. Because it's not one that I don't enjoy. It's just one that doesn't hit the table that much. It's not exciting enough that it takes the space of something else or takes the time of something else. That said, I still have the follow-up games to this, Venice and Florence. Venice I've played and I've enjoyed, and I really want to get into more. I want to try out the expansion content and just see what that's capable of doing. Florence I haven't had a chance to try yet, and I absolutely will before making any kind of decisions on it. But of the 3 of them, if I'm making space, this is my least favorite of the 3. And also probably not best solo. Probably better with some friends as a multiplayer game, and I'm not sure that I would ever play this over something else when I have that small chance to actually get some multiplayer games played. So again, this one's a little bit less exciting for me to leave, but I need the space, and this one is the one that's taking up the space, unfortunately. Last two games are some bigger ones. Patriot. This is a game that I had never, ever heard of. This is a game that is a sort of big group social deduction meets worker placement kind of game where you're trying to read people at the table to convince them to do certain things while you're also trying to get certain things done. And it's a very social deduction style game, except then it's also soloable, which is interesting. The solo gets rid of the social deduction aspect, but it adds in these interesting scenarios to the game where each time you play, you're trying to get different things done, which pushes you to try different things. And if you watch my video, I did a review of this, and if you watch my video, I had quite a bit of fun with this. Surprisingly so, because I had never heard of this game. No one that I know of was talking about this game. And still, I see very little love or very little discussion of this game. And I actually had quite a bit of fun with this solo. That said, realistically, it's designed as this multiplayer social deduction, discussion at a table kind of a game. And ultimately, I think that's where it's going to shine. And again, because it is, in the solo mode at least, sort of like a heightened pandemic meets worker placement kind of game with a variety of different scenarios that twist things up, but still ultimately that same sort of core mechanism. It's not one that's begging to be played solo over other things that I have, and it is a very large box. So unfortunately, this one also has to go. And then finally, the last one that really does pain me, Monster Pit. I'm a huge fan of Elzra. I'm a huge fan of the Catacombs world. I love Catacombs. I've just recently picked up Catacombs and Castles to use as a sort of introduction to dexterity flicking games in my after-school board game design and mechanisms class. I'm excited for the extra content that's coming for Catacombs. I did just recently get the solo expansion for Catacombs, which I hope to dig into fairly soon, and I would love to get played in a video on the channel. Elzra still pulls me in. Elzra still gets me going. Catacombs is cool. Catacombs Cubes, while slightly different and didn't have this artwork, still was a very, very fun sort of resource management building puzzly kind of game. This one went back to the Quan Chai Moria artwork from the Catacombs series that I do love so much. This was a sort of co-op tower defense worker placement kind of game where you're fighting off against these giant monsters, and it sounded so cool. Unfortunately, it's huge. There's this sprawling sort of board and cards and so on that didn't really need to be as large or as complicated as it is, because the core game mechanism really isn't all that complicated. There's many different locations to go to, but realistically, at least in the solo mode, you don't really go to those locations all that much. There's sort of a core loop of places you're going to. In the solo mode, that means that the decision making wasn't all that interesting, and it just wasn't that much fun as a solo game. Now that said, as a multiplayer game with the right group who's discussing things and working together to solve puzzles and play through this game, I think that this game could still be a lot of fun, but unfortunately it didn't work for me, and the solo mode for me just didn't shine over anything else. And that's sad to me because, again, I love this universe, I love this artwork so much, but ultimately this game just didn't do it for me, and therefore must leave the collection. So that's it for the first installment of Purple Moose Purges. I hope that this was interesting to watch. Again, this is the first time I'm doing this, so tell me how you feel. Is this a good video? Is this something you're interested in me continuing to do? Leave some comments down below about the video itself, but also about all of the games that you saw me talk about on screen. Did I make any mistakes? Are there any games here that I should have kept? Are there any games that I've held on for too long and should have been gone long ago? Let me know what you think about these games. Talk to me. Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me how stupid I am for getting rid of these games. I'm excited to have a discussion with you about these because a lot of these I did really enjoy. I just don't have the space. So that's it for this time. I will be back with more of these as I build up stuff that gets shipped out. but probably not so regularly because I don't want to be getting rid of everything very quickly. I hope that this video is interesting to you. I hope that you enjoyed it. And as always, if you did, I do ask that you like, subscribe, and click the bell icon below. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks.